Utah 2022. What a fabulous trip. Some of us flew from Cayman up to Charlotte, and Mary and I flew from Sarasota on up to Charlotte. And then we were supposed to connect and fly all together over to Las Vegas. Unfortunately, the Cayman group got a little delayed, but they caught up with us later on the next flight. And we eventually all made it to Vegas. Walking the strip is always exciting. The lights, the sounds, you can just feel it in the air. We got to visit a lot of the other resorts also, like the Bellagio, Venetian, and of course Caesar's Palace. All so different, all so exciting. Made it down to the Mirage Resort, where they have a volcano that goes off like 2 or 3 times a night. This was quite impressive. Really have to see it. Really have to feel the heat. It was quite amazing. We also had the opportunity to see the dancing fountains at the Bellagio, which are really quite impressive. We also took in the Shim Limitless show at the Mirage one evening. He just dazzled us with his magic. That was a very fun evening. We also spent some time at the Eataly, which was at the Park MGM, where we had dinner, wine, and of course fabulous cannolis. Early one morning, we found ourselves headed to Hoover Dam. Hoover Dam was dedicated in 1935 and originally was called Boulder Dam. There's enough concrete in this dam to pave a 2-lane highway from San Francisco all the way to New York City. The dam is 660 feet thick at the bottom and 45 feet at the top, connecting Arizona and Nevada. Being so thick at the bottom, it's connected by tunnels, and we had the opportunity to go through some of these tunnels. Way at the bottom, we were able to view some of the turbines that produces all the electricity for millions of people. Hoover Dam dams up the Colorado River, making Lake Mead, and of course you can see and you've read in the news how low the water level is in Lake Mead. It's just surprisingly low. On Monday, we checked into Lazy Pines Cabin in Duck Creek Village, Utah, which was our home base as we traveled around to the different parks. Another place we found ourselves stopping was at Pipe Springs National Monument. This was founded by the Mormons in 1870. The gentleman that was sent there by John Smith was named Windsor, and they named this building the Windsor Castle. This was the only outpost there for many years out there in Navajo country. Here in Cedar Breaks National Monument, we found ourselves above the snow line a little bit, and Owen had a good time making snowballs. You don't get to do that in the Cayman Islands very often. Starting to get a little hungry, so we found ourselves over here at the Veo Pizzeria, which, unbelievably, we had a fantastic pizza at this little family-owned restaurant here and had a really good time. After the pizza, we went across the street for the famous original Veo pies. Not as good as the pizza. We entered Bryce Canyon and we were able to see what they call the hoodoos. The hoodoos are deposition of flat-lying rocks which occurred about 50 million years ago. And then the land was uplifted by the shifting earth plates. And then weathering and erosion, primarily by ice and rain, caused these fabulous formations. We then found ourselves checking into Beyond the Fence Sanctuary in Kanab, Utah. This was a nice little Airbnb, and they had a beautiful view right out the backyard, and even had some horses and a mule that would come right up to the fence that we could pet. Saturday morning found us taking an ATV ride. Justin drove us, the four of us. Owen rode with the guide. Took us out through Peekaboo Canyon. It was a very exhilarating ride. We all loved it. It was one of the highlights of the trip for sure. The rock formations and the colors that we saw in Peekaboo Canyon can't even be explained to you. You have to really see these formations to really understand their beauty and the magnificent formations that have occurred over the millions of years. Just Angela and Owen would go out and do some more strenuous trails. Mary and I would relax back at the Airbnb. They had some really interesting hikes, and on one they did see some ancient pteroglyphs on the side of some of these cliffs, which was quite interesting, they said. We had the opportunity to explore the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, which had hoodoos, which are called toadstools for obvious reasons. We then headed over to Glen Canyon National Rec Center, where we saw the Glen Canyon Dam, which dams up the Colorado River, creating Horseshoe Bend, which is one of the most recognized and, as Owen would say, iconic images of the West. On the way heading to the Grand Canyon, we were able to stop over, and Owen had a chance to get his feet wet in the Colorado River, which was a little chilly at the time. Then we headed and was able to finally check off the bucket list, the Grand Canyon. We then hiked out to Angel's Window, And just to show how vast the Grand Canyon is just in this one area, if you look at Angel's window and we zoom in a little bit, you'll see Mary, Justin, Angela, and Owen out there on the very end. Justin, Angela, and Owen would take some strenuous walks, and they would take one down into the canyon a little bit. They were going about 3 hours, came back all sweaty, blisters on their feet, but they had a good time. It was pretty strenuous. But Mary and I, we were pretty happy just to sit back in the lodge, talk to people, cold drinks, people watch. We did see some bison as we left the Grand Canyon National Park, and our next stop was Jacob Lake Inn. They're known for their milkshakes and their fabulous cookies. Matter of fact, we had to make a couple stops there. Once we got back into Vegas, we stopped at a piano store where they had this $750,000 piano. They didn't let Owen play that one, but they did let him play the other pianos, and he played some of his own compositions. Back in Vegas, we checked into the MGM Grand, which is the largest hotel in the United States, almost 6,000 rooms. For dinner, we did have to go to the Crack Shack, one that Owen found and highly recommended. It wasn't too bad. Then we found ourselves, the next morning, headed to the airport, headed back to Sarasota. But we leave with a lot of memories, wonderful pictures, and words that we can't even describe what we saw. Some of the national parks, some of the monuments, memories that we will have forever. It was one fabulous trip.